People have told me before that while they value my work as Splatoon players, that I will lose their support if I make my politics a part of my content. But these people miss a very important point. It is impossible to be apolitical, to have no politics, especially when you have any amount of agency over a community of people. When I was a teacher in a classroom, if I saw a student being bullied, I needed to intervene against the bullying. Just letting it happen is not a neutral stance, it is an allowance for bullying to continue. Kids cannot feel like they get to have whatever they want just because they're bigger or have a group of friends who will gang up on someone with them. That's a safety issue. And that's why no one objects when you intervene, even though that's a political stance that you have taken in that situation. If you believe the strong or the majority should not be allowed to abuse their power to exploit the vulnerable or the minority free of consequence, you're now anti-bullying, but you're also an opponent of unchecked government authority and an opponent of fascism. The same principles underpin each, but no one begrudges the teacher for taking that action, even though they're taking a political stance. That's because we have found those practices to be uncontroversially valuable in improving the mental health and physical well-being of the students in our charge. No scientist has empirically found bullying to be good for people to endure. There are probably some lay people who disagree, but none who have studied the issue, none who work with children, frankly, none who know what the hell they're talking about. Now that I'm a content creator, I run a Discord server with over 6,000 members and have fairly large YouTube comments sections and get hundreds of concurrent viewers in stream chats on YouTube and on Twitch. Much more than the 180 students who were in my charge as a teacher in a classroom on a given year. If someone's using their voice, their power, their agency to attack someone who has done nothing wrong, it is my responsibility to that community to stand up to it. It's a safety issue. This is why I list a variety of rules in the Discord server that dictate people treat one another to a certain standard of decency and take action, or instruct my moderators to take action, to enforce those rules. One of those rules bans expressing bigoted beliefs, which includes beliefs that denounce or invalidate people based on their gender identity and sexual orientation, because that's a safety issue. Right now, my country is going through a truly disgusting period of bringing about deliberate harm through legislation against trans people. For a recent example, far from the only one, in Florida, House Bill 1421 somehow made it past the Healthcare Regulation Committee. I say somehow because it bans doctors from helping people in the way that vast organizations of doctors have collectively agreed is best for them. The American Psychological Association, the American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association. Around 400,000 people total, all with either medical or doctoral degrees in their fields. The people who know what the hell they're talking about find gender-affirming care for trans people to be the uncontroversial best set of medical practices. But lawmakers are deciding that all of the doctors are wrong. They are trying to criminalize gender-affirming care and forcibly detransition trans people, among other massively overreaching provisions that could negatively impact people who aren't even undergoing the gender-affirming care the bill is targeting. For example, the bill could potentially criminalize certain treatments for breast cancer and prostate cancer. I don't think it's an exaggeration at all to say that people would die as a result of this bill being written into law. We got to this point because of rhetoric, not science, because of fear-mongering pundits getting on TV and using a lot of ugly language that I will not be repeating to convince people that conclusive scientific findings are up for debate, not because of contrary evidence, but because politicians want them to be. Violence against trans people is much more likely than violence against cisgendered people, and yet it's trans people that these pundits portray as dangerous to cis people, not the other way around. If someone comes into my Discord server, my YouTube comments, or any place else that is within my purview as a leader of whatever community I'm in, repeating that rhetoric, that is a safety issue, and it will be dealt with as such. There are so many beautiful, valuable, talented, worthy trans people in this gaming community who deserve to be protected like the human beings they are as they mind their business trying to play their favorite game. If anyone is trying to make this innocuous space unwelcome to these beautiful, valuable, talented, worthy people that we are better for having in our scene, they can leave. For many people, this issue is colored by their religious beliefs, and they might feel hurt that I have contradicted their beliefs in this way. So to them, I say this: your personal relationship to spirituality is none of my business, and I have no intention of policing it. But there are reasonable limits to what acts you can justify with a document like the Bible. I specify the Bible because Christianity is the majority religious faith where I live, and it's what I find the most people trying to use to support transphobic value systems in the cases that I've seen. If you were to try to enact the rules of Leviticus and Deuteronomy, that adulterers must be stoned to death, and you tried to come into a tournament to drag an alleged adulterer away to that punishment, I'd call the police and physically defend that person from you. I don't think it's controversial that those verses, taken, by the way, from the same place as many of the pronouncements against homosexuality in the Bible, are better off not being a part of life in modern society. Anti-trans rhetoric is a threat to the health and safety of trans people. And so, I don't care what Bible verse you try to quote at me. It is my job to ensure that the people in my community are safe, not to defend your religious values. If you decide to treat the people in this community in ways that invalidate them, condescend to them, or attack them for who they are, we are better off without you. Listen to the trans people in your life when they tell their stories today on the International Trans Day of Visibility. Trans people don't share a monolithic singular belief system. Many disagree with each other. Just like any group of people, you need to consider the broader conversation instead of just taking one individual's word as representative of their entire demographic. And if you don't have any trans people in your life, maybe think about why that might be. Think about the lack of knowledge that will necessarily lead to. Consider abstaining from supporting legislation dictating how people who are strangers to you must live and what their bodies and minds must be like until you know a little bit more about the experiences they're sharing. If you're looking to help oppose anti-human rights legislation, there's a link in the description to support the American Civil Liberties Union. If you didn't know, a nonprofit that provides legal assistance and lobbying to defend against infringement on civil liberties. There's a lot of legislation like the Florida House bill that has already been put in place in other states. This is just the latest one. Keep an eye out for similar bills in your state, because chances are someone has at least tried to push one there too. I'll also post a link to support the Trevor Project. It's a crisis prevention service for LGBTQ people that's done good work supporting people whose mental health is impacted by living in a culture that's too often hostile to them. I'll be doing a charity stream exclusively on Twitch this afternoon to support the Trevor Project, so feel free to stop by and donate there if you'd like. And if you see anything transphobic in my orbit, in the spaces that I'm responsible for moderating, please know that you can always reach out to me or a moderator about it. People don't learn when they're under stress, when they're being bullied, when they're being threatened, when someone's making them unsafe. Everyone deserves a place to be able to learn. Everyone deserves a place to be safe. I have no intention of letting anyone take that away from people in my communities on my watch.